What's up, everybody? This is Jeff El Jefe from Guru Elite, and I am here to show you how to use our new optimizer powered by Fantasy Cruncher. Really cool tool that we have here. Gives you a lot of customization when you're trying to do multi-entry lineups, but also allows you to just run a standard optimal lineup as well. All you do is you click the lineup total to 1 right there. You choose the slate that you want under the game filter. So we'll go with the main slate right here. And then you run that and you get an optimal lineup that you can use. A lot of people use in cash games. This being a Coors Field slate with the Giants in Colorado, you see a lot of exposure to that there. So that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so like I said, the cool thing about this, though, is the multi-entering lineup. So you could do up to 25 here. Jack that up to 25 right here, any number between 1 and 25. And build a bunch of lineups out. Let me show you some of the options that we have. Click on advanced options right here, and it gives you just a ton of different things you can do. Unique players is the first thing we'll look at. That allows you to decide how differentiated you want your lineups. If you just set it to the default 1 unique player per lineup, then it's going to build the most optimal lineup, and then 1 variation off of that after that, just the next most optimal lineup by plugging out in and out 1 player. So if you are trying to win a qualifier or something, that is not typically the best way to go. You want a lot of differentiation, so maybe you jack that up to 3. This is just something to play with and learn how to best get the best use out of that. The next thing we'll look at here is team salary. Of course, you can set a min salary so that all of your lineups won't have more than $1,000 under the cap or anything. And if you want, you can also set a max. I think this is less utilized, but still valuable, especially for those big tournaments with hundreds of thousands of people in them, like a Millionaire Maker or something. Sometimes you don't want to go with a completely capped out lineup because you might run into a duplicate with someone else. If you leave, say, 500 on the table, you're a lot less likely to have a duplicate lineup. So that's where that comes into play. Hitter versus pitcher, most of the time you're not going to take a hitter versus your pitcher, but on these smaller slates with like a 2-game slate, you might want to change that to 1 because oftentimes in the shorter slates, the optimal lineup will have a hitter against the pitcher that is used. So you can play around with that a little bit as well. Most of the time you're going to have that at 0 though. Exposure settings here. This allows you to change the max that you'll want of any player to a specific number. So say you want no more than 30% of any one player. You just click that to 30%, click change all, and that means there won't be more than 30% of any player in your lineups. This apply exposure as group or each is something that Oreo from Fantasy Cruncher was telling me about the other day. Group basically will take the, say, your Mike Trout, your highest owned player, and then build as many lineups as you're telling it to in a row. Each instead will go and spread those Mike Trout lineups out so you get a little more differentiation. Again, it's another way to get differentiation. We can do that with the unique players. We can do this a little differently with the apply exposure as each. And then this other tool right here, the randomness setting. So the randomness setting, if you have that set to 0%, is just going to spit out optimal lineups, the most optimal lineups as possible. The more you increase this, the more random it gets, of course. So it's going to be less optimal, but more differentiation. And just because it's less optimal doesn't mean that's a bad thing. Like I said, especially in qualifiers, you are looking for a little more randomness. So feel free to play around with that as well. You've got right here to the right of that, players per team change all max. Say you don't want to run any 4-team stacks. You just change that to 3. You can do that by team too. Say for the Angels, I talked about this on the show the other day that I typically don't want a 4-man stack of the Angels. I usually go with Mike Trout and Pujols. If you find a team that you only want to stack 2 people from, then you change the exact numbers. You can change it to minimum 2, maximum 2. That means you're going to get exactly 2 Angels anytime you use a stack from there. You can set it so, say with the Coors stack today, Coors Field, you could go and build a bunch of lineups around that game. You could choose a minimum of 3 hitters from each game. You could choose a minimum of 4 hitters from each game and see how many combinations you can pop out there, and that's just a bunch of core stacks. So, of course, a lot of different things you can do with that. Let's move over to the team stacks section. Now, I think this is what people are most curious about how to use, and it's a little more complicated, but pretty easy once you see it once. So what you do for team stacks is you'll click Add Stack here, and this allows you to decide how big you want the stack. Typically 4 players is a common stack on Fanduel. So you click that, and then these are the teams that you want those stacks to contain. Default, you're just going to click Add All, but if you see some teams that you definitely don't want exposure to, you just start unchecking them. So you don't like San Diego today, you uncheck them. You don't like Kansas City, you uncheck them. You also change how much you want. Like, I don't want more than 40% of San Francisco today, even though they're at cores, just because they're going to be highly owned, and no more than 40% of Colorado either. You can play around with all those exposure settings as well. Again, it's just a super powerful tool. So many different directions you can go with this. But then, okay, so you've got your 1 4-man stack. That's great. Now what are you going to do with the other 4 hitter spots in your roster? You can do another 4-man stack if you want. And stacks gives a little more flexibility with who you can choose your pitcher to be. And of course, just a random one-off player that gives differentiation. So a lot of times you'll see me with a 4-man and a 3-man stack. Again, click Add All, and it's going to build out a lot of 4+3-man rosters for you. So that's pretty much that. Groups right here we're going to ignore until football season. Probably that's where it has the most use, where you can kind of pair quarterback and receiver with the other team's wide receiver, that sort of thing. Not super useful for baseball, though. So we're going to clear that out and go to this main screen again here. This check marks right here, this tells you that you are okay with that player being in your lineup. If there are guys that you do not want in your lineup, you just uncheck them. One thing I'll do is often I won't want hitters that are batting really low in the order, so I'll start unchecking these 9th place hitters, assuming there's enough value out there. I think a lot of times you can do that, you know. This yellow or green indicator right here, green means that the batting order is out and released, and that guy is actually in the lineup. Yellow means they think that guy could be in the lineup. So just make sure you're paying attention to that. Of course, the closer you run your lineup build to lock, the better, because you're going to have all those lineups confirmed, or more of those lineups confirmed. Also, you can edit our projections here. We have a really advanced model, runs a bunch of simulations daily, and it spits out a really accurate number. But if you feel like, you know what, I don't think that guy's going to score that many points, I think it's going to be a little higher or lower, feel free to adjust that. Say like Dustin Garneau today, you want to jack him up to 10 points, feel free to do that. Exposure, say you've got, remember we changed our of any player to 30%. If you see a player out here that you do like, Dustin Garneau, and you're like, you know what, I'm okay with having 50% of him though, then you can adjust that individually as well. Okay, so I think that pretty much covers most of the features in terms of how you want to build everything. Let's click Calculate here and see what it spits out. A lot of times what you'll do is you'll run one of these, see what it spits out, and then kind of start adjusting things again. Say it spits out too much Coors Field still, and you want to adjust to a little bit less Coors Field, then you just start to tweak everything till you get it exactly how you want. You check out your pitchers here, and you go, okay, yeah, I like all those pitchers except these 2 guys. Then you go to pitchers over here again, and you start to uncheck the guys that you don't like. Like, I don't like Maeda today. I don't like Robbie Ray because it's too hot. Say that those are the 2 guys you didn't like. Then you just recalculate, click that again. It'll still save that tab for you here under Crunch 2. You can name it to whatever you want. And your new build here is Crunch 3. So yeah, pretty sweet how you're able to do that. Really easy to quickly adjust and build through more lineups. You'll see that those guys that we clicked removed from the build are no longer here. So that's good. You go through here, you kind of make sure that your builds are correct here. It looks like, you know, I did put that we wanted a minimum of 2 angels per lineup, I think. So that's why we're seeing a bunch of angels here. But, you know, you've got your core stacks, of course, that we inputted in there. A lot of different cool things here. All right, cool. So what you do after this, say everything looked perfect. Of course, you'd spend a little more time than I did just now, but you click export, make sure you have the right slate selected, which is main, and that's going to save it for you. You go over to Fanduel, and it's pretty self-explanatory. If it were DraftKings, it's a very similar process. You just go to upload lineups, and then you'd have to enter the contests just from the lobby screen. Really, really simple, though. On Fanduel, let me just walk you through it. You would go here. You would click on a contest you wanted to enter. We'll just do this little $3 tournament right here. You would go down to upload lineups from CSV right here, and you're able to find it. This was the one right here. They do it by date too, which makes it really easy. So click that, upload. It'll ask you to confirm the amount, and you're all set. All right, Mafia, thank you for tuning into this tutorial. We will be back again with more of these as we need them. We will catch you then.